From the iHeartRadio studios in New York City, come fans of the greatest rock and roll band hailing from Hollywood, California. Dissecting all things Guns N' Roses and anything else distorted. 'Cause you know what the fuck you are! This is Appetite for Distortion.
And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 49. Almost middle age. Almost. It is Brando, and with me, co-host today, I guess the first person that we interviewed fan-wise, Sir Kevin from Ireland. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Top in the morning? No, it's not top. It's top in the night to you, right? Because it's...
Evening and snowing outside, so...
Ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty cold here.
All right, because it's mid-afternoon here in NYC. A little dreary. You know, it was very rainy and windy last night. Not like anyone gives a shit, but you said the S word, snow, so I'll say the other X word. Sucks for you. But if you don't know Kevin, I believe... What was the number of your episode? Do you remember?
27.
Of course you remember. So, Sir Kevin was our first... now it's you're going to experience the first time I'm playing the theme song. Fans. You've heard that, right?
I think so.
Fans. Awful, just awful. But I got that idea from another fan, who self-proclaimed 38-year-old Korean dude from Chicago, after our second fan interview with Tomislav from Croatia, and me wanting to continue these, the fan interviews, like what to call it. So if you don't know Kevin's story, listen back to the first fan obsession. I won't play it again, and get his. It's a great life story and Guns N' Roses story. So I wanted him on this episode with me to interview Steve Gorman from the Black Crowes. Because for a few reasons. So he's going to be coming up in a few minutes. For one, because as I've been doing with a lot of my guests, as soon as it's confirmed, I put out there, hey, do you have any fan questions? And we're going to ask Steve Gorman, your fan submitted questions, whether on Facebook, Twitter, or my GNR forum, you actually, Kevin, you asked a great question I want to get to with Steve, and that's about Izzy. So, so we'll get to that with Steve, but... I guess this is in addition to the Izzy segue and also the segue of bad sound bites. News. Yeah, starting every episode with a shotgun news. You love. I'm glad people love it because it's just I have many issues. So in addition to shotgun news or part of shotgun news. I want to thank and refer to last episode, and that was the segue with Izzy. So last episode, you may have heard, a lot of people heard last episode, more than I really ever imagined. Alan Niven, former Guns N' Roses manager, was a guest on episode 48, thanks to, and it was also co-hosted by Mitch LaFon. So you're the Irish Mitch LaFon today. That's who you are.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I would take that too. And also, you're both hockey fans. See, he's a Canadians fan who's been kicking our Islanders' ass, by the way.
Yeah. I heard you at that.
It all ties in together. It's unbelievable. So, first, I do want to thank Mitch for setting it up, the interview with Alan Niven, and just Alan in general. I mean, there are a lot of people who listen to the episode, and I know that because the outlets who picked it up. And I only mention the outlets not to... because I got one annoying comment on Facebook that's like, why are you sharing the same article a million times? It's like, well, because I'm sharing it from different outlets, and this doesn't happen every time, and I'm acknowledging people who acknowledge me. So if you didn't notice, with the episode with Alan Niven, when she dropped a bombshell about Izzy showing up to a sound check, which has been... What's confirmed nowadays? The only thing that's confirmed is Axel's love of Taco Bell, as we all know. So... in our world, confirmed, and Mitch said to me, actually tweeted to me this morning, that Izzy was at a sound check in Nashville, which was discussed on my GNR forum when it happened, but now I guess through Alan, we got some sort of, quote, confirmation. So kudos to my GNR for being on that. And supposedly, he was rumored to be in Pittsburgh as well. So that's the breaking news, but it was picked up by, first, I know they're sometimes crazy with their headlines, but they always give me credit, and it's never a lie, and that would be Alternative Nation. So thank you to Brett. Metal Sucks, Metal Hammer, Loudwire, Guitar World, Up Rocks, Ultimate Guitar, Ultimate Classic Rock, Team Rock, Brave Words, and my buddy Eddie, two Eddies, Ed Robinson, who's the producer for Eddie Trunk, talked about it on his news segment. So it was talked about it on the Eddie Trunk show. I did not ask him to do that. I wasn't like, hey, can you mention this? No, I don't. I don't do that. So thank you. And I'm sure there might be more places that I'm not aware of. But it was just really cool. If you haven't listened to it yet, it's worth the whole, not just with the Izzy parts. The whole conversation is amazing. Great stories from Alan. And we've been talking crazy to me back and forth email since, looping in. We've been having a three-way with Mitch LaFon on via email. Some hockey talk, sure. But when this started to go viral, Alan emails me. He's like, well, personally, I can't do his accent. I thought the stuff about Axl and the astrology was more important and more newsworthy, or more interesting, I think was the word he said. And also, I do want to mention not, anything for my ego, because I don't have one. I'm too self-loathing to have an ego, I believe. But Alan did say afterwards that he appreciated. I mean, I want to get it verbatim, and it is up on our Facebook. I put it up there because I guess I'm just proud of it. That if I was just full of rock cliches, and didn't go into a deeper conversation, because we did talk about depression. And I know we talked about that on our episode, Kevin. So there's the tie-in there. That he would have been just quick and gone if it was just, hey, rock and roll, Axl, Izzy, and that's it. So that would have been ridiculous. So he goes, here I found the quote, and thank you for your hospitality. I always enjoy connecting to those who avoid obvious pedestrian cliche rockisms and who will converse with intelligence. Kudos. That makes for a worthwhile broadcast. Imagine. That's how he signs his emails. That's how he signatures them. So that meant a lot to me, So thank you to everybody who listened and all the great feedback. And I just want to acknowledge all of that. And for one, within the Shotgun News segment, to you, Kevin, being, Izzy being your favorite member, and just having a lot of ties to him. And I don't know if anything came of it. You wanted to be the Izzy in an Irish GNR cover band. I know you were trying to start one. What are your thoughts on this, first of all?
My thoughts are, if it was a sound check, then it was obviously something similar to what Steve had done. It was a guest spot.
Right.
I would rather not see Izzy guest with his own band again. I think he was annoyed initially, like not doing the whole thing because of the likes of people like Melissa being there and stuff. And I suspect that they were going to have a third guitarist anyway. And if Izzy had came out on stage, it's not like Richard would have left, so we wouldn't be getting this /Izzy thing that we've been missing for so many years. We'd be getting just this different GNR all over again. I don't think it's what he wants. As for what's pissed him off, I don't know if it's any of those things. I don't know if it's the whole thing with money. It's just shrouded in mystery. But personally, I wouldn't like to see him be a guest for his own band. I mean, those guys are out playing songs he wrote or co-wrote all the time, and it's just, I don't know. The more it goes on, the less comfortable with the Not in This Lifetime tour.
Wow.
In terms of just how they're dealing with Izzy and Steve. And
I know it's definitely added to probably what I'm sure Axl wanted to avoid, and why we don't hear too much from Steven after he spoke with Mitch. And I'm sure it's just crazy to me. I have no idea if, I know for a fact Slash has listened to at least the episode with London, obviously his fucking kid. So I know he's at least aware of this existing, but so I'm not going to assume Axl has listened. Of course not. I don't have that ego, but I'm sure the story is still viral regardless. So, and I'm sure Axl did not want that to get out there because that causes, the Izzy Eyehards to get upset, and this is not a true reunion. And I get that part of it. I'm just wondering again, like, what happened? It could not be just solely about money because he flew out there already. So there would have been a preliminary conversation, and not that Izzy thinks that first, of course not, but that could have been part of it. And that he was, there were talks of Pittsburgh, I'm being told by Mitch LaFon as well, that there's something more to it. And it's not like they had two drummers on stage. Frank left, Adler came on. So, I mean, I know Fortis has been, obviously he's been in the band longer than Izzy, but he did not write those songs. And I don't think that, I've never met Richard. We have a common friend that I hope to speak to him someday. I don't think he would have been, like, upset. Hey, let Izzy have the stage. So I don't know what it is. I mean, there are rumors that, again, these are just rumors, like the typical, I now that I'm starting to actually meet people, I will tell you if I kind of know something, or if I don't know anything of this. That maybe because Steven, because he was recently quoted saying that it almost caused him to drink again, not being joined on the reunion. So maybe the fact that he's really still battling, maybe that's hard for Izzy to be around. Again, this is purely speculation. I'm just saying that there seems to be more to the story than this. So if anything, I look at it like this. There was communication, and the potential is always there. It's the saga of Guns N' Roses will continue. More of us to talk about. Maybe if they are recording something, does it mean that these people, Adler or Izzy, are involved in that but not in touring? I mean, there's a lot of questions that we don't know, and I do not expect that to get that from Alan. If you listen to the interview, and I'm glad most places included the quote where he said hypothetically with his feelings on Izzy, and maybe I'm sure there are elements of truth in there somewhere, but I said, hey, if you don't want to talk about this, you can say, hey, Izzy's off riding in the sunset, hanging with his French lady, and you don't have to answer. So he offered up that information, and he does talk to people in the current. I mean, just because you're not managing the band anymore doesn't mean friendships end. I mean, yes, his friendship with Axl seemed to have ended, but there are other people. So he has nothing to gain from lying.
I don't think he's lying, but he's always been a great advocate of Izzy. Like I've heard and read so many interviews with Alan, and he's just always been so pro Izzy, in terms of how important he was to the band.
Yeah.
Never the same after he left.
Yeah, he called it, and I'm going to get his quote right, the heart of the soul. That's what he refers to Izzy of Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, he's entirely right. From my own point of view, being a fan, and Izzy being the one that got me playing guitar in the first place is
right.
It's always been missing him. The problem is when Izzy left, it was before they'd made all these big videos and before they released like the Tokyo DVDs and everything. So Izzy's not really in people that became fans at the height in their heads. It's there's so many different pockets of GNR fans.
Yeah. I try to be in the main. I want to be in the giant kangaroo pouch, for a disgusting analogy for what you were just saying. But there are many different pockets, and you're right. And what this did was spark and reopened a possible wound for some. Honestly, some of the responses that I got, saying either being, "Oh my God, I was so close," or actually that was a lot of it. "Oh my God, I was so close," especially the people that were at the Nashville show. I mean, that's kind of like, "Oh my God." So, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. And I think when we initially had you on with Scotto, Scotto and I we're okay with it being this reunion. But of course, I would love to see the original five. It's just more to it. There's more to it. And if anything, I took it like that. Like there's just more stories from Guns N' Roses, from all the pockets of Guns N' Roses that there are that we don't know yet. And we're going to hear, of course, we're going to talk to Steve Gorman, because I think there are some pockets of GNR history that he has actually been a part of, which is amazing to me. But I also want to get your opinion on this, because we're going to, obviously, Steve Gorman being a drummer, and we'll do this as the last segment of News. And that would be Matt Sorum saying he's going to release a new book, and it's going to be one of the juiciest GNR books. So there are more exactly. There are more stories out there, and Matt.
Yeah.
I've reached out to him, and he's hard to he's a little elusive. I know he recently did an interview with Matt Pinfield. Pinfield's he's a name. I'm a nobody. I'm lucky who I've gotten so far. But I'd like to think when he puts out the book, he'll be on a radio tour, and hopefully I'll get him when he does that. But just what stories he may have in that pocket of GNR history, for me, he's always been a well-spoken guy. I was disappointed with Adler's book with just the writing, so I want to get a drummer's perspective. For me, a better drummer's perspective on that band. So, did you know about that at all? Because you've read all of them, right? All the GNR autobiographies. Yeah,
I've read every one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm looking forward to most about Matt's is he's got the whole way through, because the original lineup toured with the Cult when he was in the Cult, and then there was his tenure, and then he was in Snake Pit, and then he was in Neurotic Outsiders with Duff, and then he was in Velvet Revolver. So there's going to be a lot in there.
You're right.
But Matt stayed up well after Slash left, during the Robin Fink, Paul Tobias era as well. So I'm hoping there's a lot of that in there. There's a lot of things we've not been told because other members had already left at that time. But Matt has this whole run through.
You're right.
I'm hoping it's juicy.
It sounds like it's going to be juicy. And you know what? I do want to mention one thing, but I want people to actually go to Axl Rose's Twitter and read it, because I'm not the kind of person. I don't like getting a tweet and making it into my own thing. It's like if it's someone else's, I give them credit. Like if you go to, and this is going to be the next episode 50, Raz Q, he gave me and John Miller some never before seen or hasn't been seen in decades pictures of LA Guns and Axl, and because we're going to be interviewing original drummer before Adler, Rob Gardner. So I want to give Raz Q credit for that. So go to razq.com before you go to the AFD show on Facebook or Twitter. That was my segue to, if you want to read about Axl shitting on our First Lady and Ivanka Trump, he's been on a political tirade, and it's been hilarious. Go to Axl, and his use of emojis has been amazing. So I hope we get more political Axl. I know I tweeted this once to Del James. I would love, not just to interview Del, but because he's really political on Twitter. For him, I just want to give him an outlet. Hey, you want 5 minutes just to talk about shit about Trump? Come on the AFD show. I don't care. It'll be, just go on a rant. I would love that. So I guess that wraps up this portion of news. So thank you for joining me for that, Sir Kevin.
No problem at all, man.
And it looks like Steve Gorman's calling up.
Cool.
So joining us on the phone, as Sir Kevin and I have been alluding to for a while, is Steve Gorman from Fox Sports Radio. See, I'm on the radio as well, but I can't get it out. Fox Sports Radio, 6 to 8 Pacific, right? I believe Steve Gorman Sports. I can't say.
That's correct.
Okay, I can't say it like you. Also, a Trigger Happy.
Trigger Hippy.
Trigger Hippy.
Hippy.
I have Trigger Hippy written down, so I'm not an idiot. I just misread it. So I'm partially an idiot. And I could re-edit this, but I'm not going to, because
just let it rip, man.
Exactly. That's rock and roll. I have Trigger Hippy written down. Of course, I don't even have it written. I need to have it written down because I know who you are. We've met before. And of course, legendary drummer from the Black Crowes, Steve Gorman. Welcome to Appetite for Distortion.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be with you.
I wish I was, I was going to say I wish I was physically with you, but I stopped myself because that's a weird sentence to start off with. I start everything off weird. It's been a while, Steve, since we've actually physically met. A couple years ago. What we do here at Premier Radio at iHeart and NYC, a lot of the guys from Fox Sports from LA, when they have business in New York, will come out here, and they still have a show to do, and they'll use our facilities, and I'm usually the guy who, for lack of a better word, babysits them or connects them to the ISDN line, which is a fancy term for a phone line. Like, actually, Steve, in a few hours, I have Chris Broussard coming in, so I got to work with him today. And Doug Gottlieb earlier in the week as well.
Yeah.
But Steve came in it was maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I was like, I heard Steve Gorman from Fox Sports Radio was coming in. I'm like, Steve Gorman? Isn't that the drummer from the Black Crowes? And it doesn't seem to be like a crazy rare name. You know, it's not like Steve Gutenberg. They're like, oh my God, I guess. It could have been another Steve Gorman. And then sure enough, when I saw you, that was you. And not to recap too much on a moment that you may or may not remember, probably not, because you've lived quite a life. I have told everyone since, and I don't know why, you're like the one celebrity I didn't take a picture with. I don't know why I didn't, because I'm usually really bad with that. That you were so unbelievably nice. Between every commercial break, you came in and wanted to talk to me and find out about me, my career, and of course, you let me ask about the Black Crowes, and you were open about everything. It was crazy. I was like, I don't know, it was an awesome conversation that's always stuck with me. That happened off the record, just out of the kindness of your own heart. So, in addition,
so it's a part I learned a long time ago that if you do all those things, then people forget to get the picture with you, and then it's all about avoiding that. It's all about avoiding that photo.
Next time, I promise you. Well, you may say no, but
next time I'll be rude, and then it'll occur to you, I need to get a picture with this guy.
Yes.
You won't be disarmed by my inherent charm, and then you'll remember that I'm a celebrity, and then you'll just want a photo instead of a conversation, you see?
Yes, I know. But no, I got what you should get out of meeting someone, whether it's a celebrity or not. Just was a positive experience and a conversation. So thank you for that. And now I'm just glad, I guess I can record and share a conversation with you, with everyone, which is just so cool. So I want to get, of course, it's a GNR podcast. You do have some experience playing with Slash. I don't know how often, much you've spoken about that before. I do want to get to that. But I really want to find out more about you, because in addition to, I love growing up in the Black Crowes. Kevin grew up in the Black Crowes. Me being in radio and trying to make it in radio, you have just a naturally beautiful voice. And I sound like Fran Drescher's nephew. Mr. Sheffield, it's taken me a while to like my voice. You have a beautiful voice. So I want to find out how Steve Gorman has just grown into this multi-talented, multifaceted, just playing with everyone. Bob Dylan, of course, the Black Crowes, and being on Fox Sports Radio, which is incredible. How did that start? Where, because you grew up.
The plan was always, I went to college. I was a broadcasting major in college.
Me too.
Broadcast journalism major.
Me too.
That was actually the plan, if you could call it that. My plan was, I grew up my entire life. The only two things my brain ever really focused on were music and sports. So, listening to records obsessively from the time I was 5 when I got my first album, and then watching and playing sports. That was it. So, music was always, as a kid, thinking about what I want to be. I never thought I wanted to be a sportscaster. I always thought I wanted to be in a band. That was I don't remember a time where I didn't think, I just want to be in a band. And I was, grew up a massive Beatles fan. That was my first band. And, that was just how I saw the world, which is you get into a band and then you watch a game on TV before the gig. Literally, I would imagine how great it would be to be in a rock band and have access to tickets and just to be able to see games. I would have that conscious thought as a kid. And I used to think, I bet the Beatles were all at the World Cup in 1966 when it was in England. I bet they all went. And, of course, I've met Ringo Starr, and I've become friendly with him, and I asked him that once, and he looked at me and said, I didn't even know it was happening. So much for my childhood fantasies about the Beatles and the English, soccer team all hanging out together. But, it was just – so, and I played sports. I have 5 older brothers, and we were all athletes, and we all played basketball and soccer. And, it was just, but in that way, but I know a lot of kids that are like that. You love, especially when you're a teenager in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody had their favorite bands, and everybody had their favorite teams that I knew anyway. And that's just how it was. I had moved from Baltimore to a small town in Kentucky when I was 10. So, it's funny because I always think if my family had stayed in Maryland, I probably would have gotten started drumming a lot earlier. But in a small town in Kentucky, there just didn't seem to be I didn't see any path to being a musician. You know, I could see getting a drum kit and just sitting in my basement playing along to records, but that just didn't interest me. I just always wanted to be like actually in a band, and I didn't know anybody that wanted to be in a band with me. You know, I didn't know anyone else that even played guitar or was trying. So I really didn't give that any serious thought. By the time I was 14, 15, you know, I was just resigned, I guess, in my head. I was like, well, I'm just going to go to as many concerts as I can as soon as I get my driver's license, and I'm just going to play high school sports, and I'll figure it out as it goes. And I got to college, and two things happened when I was a freshman in college. One, I met a guy who had a drum kit, and I sat down behind it and started playing it. I said, can I try that? Because I had been air drumming and obsessed. I've been feeling like I was a drummer my whole life, and I had just never done anything about it, really. And I sat down at a drum kit and just immediately started playing. And I was like, really just more to prove to myself I could do it. I mean, I wasn't good, but I knew how to do it, and I knew what to do. I knew where my hands and feet were supposed to go, and I could just play a beat right away. And I thought, man, I knew I should have been doing this. But I also felt, well, I'm already 18. It's way too old to start something now, you know, because I was in college, and it just seemed absurd to me. So the other thing was, it had dawned on me that I was not going to play professional basketball, quite sadly. So how else do I stay connected to sports? And, you know, by the time 50 people say, man, you got a great voice, you know, I start thinking about it in those terms. And my brothers and I had all been, you know, broadcasters in the home. I mean, when we would watch a game, we would just do play-by-play, all of us simultaneously to each other, just trying to make each other laugh. And it just dawned on me, and the school I went to, Western Kentucky, has a good broadcasting school. And so by the time I was a sophomore, I think I had just sort of come up with this loose idea, like, oh, sportscaster. Okay, you can go to school for that? Okay, cool. And then right then, like, ESPN was really, like, SportsCenter was turning into a thing. And I would watch that at night and think, man, I could do that. I could go talk about sports and kind of be funny, and I would just love to excuse me, I would just love to be able to follow and, you know, go to see, you know, in my mind, I was like, what, they're in Connecticut? I could probably go to Knicks games. I mean, I remember thinking that, like, yeah, I bet I get tickets to the Knicks. You know, it just seemed like a way to have
absolutely.
access to great sporting events. And so, you know, that just seemed like a reasonable plan. But the thought of playing drums and the thought of getting into a band, once I got to school, you know, and I was in college, and I met a few guys who said, yeah, let's jam, you know, and all of a sudden I was playing here and there. And by jamming, I mean, let's learn some 3-minute punk rock songs because there's only 2 chords, and let's just make a lot of noise. And just, I had to do that one time. And then I was like kind of screwed because I knew in the back of my head, oh man, I'm not going to let this go anytime soon. So long story short, I played a few parties with some friends. And by few, I mean literally, like, we played a New Year's Eve party, and we did the same party 3 years in a row. So in a span of, you know, in 24 months, we played 3 parties, 3 New Year's Eves. And I was like, okay. And then I found a couple new friends to do a few house parties in college. I was a junior in college, and we probably played 4 times, and we had learned, you know, 15 songs. We played them all 3 times each. They're like Clash songs and Ramones songs. And I was obsessed. I was the guy saying, like, guys, let's get serious. Let's write our own songs. And they looked at me like I was crazy because they're all like, you know, they're in college for real. And I was kind of faking it, you know, because in the back of my mind, I'm just a drummer the whole time. All that to say, a guy I'd grown up with, I started my senior year in 1986 in August. And a buddy of mine from high school had moved to Atlanta. And he called me, and he was playing guitar, and we were still very close. We'd always stayed in touch. Back before you had cell phones and emails, we talked all the time. That's an indicator of the fact that we were very good friends if we still kept up with each other. And he called one day, and he goes, "Hey, I'm dropping out of school, and I'm going to start a band. You're still playing drums, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I play all the time," which was a bold-faced lie. And he said, "Well, do you want to come to Atlanta and do this with me?" And I said, "Yes." I mean, that's all it took. I just needed somebody that I knew and that I trusted and who I had similar musical taste with. And I knew that he was serious. I could tell he was not like it wasn't going to be a little lark. And I said, yeah, I'm in. And I mean, I decided right there on the phone, like, that's it. I'm dropping out and I'm going to Atlanta. I'd barely spent any time there. I didn't know anything about Atlanta, but I was like, well, he's there, I'm going, and I'm going to start a band. And that was it. I mean, so broadcasting, took about a 25-year detour.
And that detour was called the Black Crowes. I mean, that's a little, it's kind of a named detour.
Yeah, so, my buddy and I, his name was Clint, and I got to Atlanta to start a band with him, and Chris Robinson was his roommate. And, I moved down and started my own band, and Chris and his brother had their own band already. But I moved into a house, and then I was actually in the same room. Chris and I shared a room. There was 2 bedrooms in the house, and there was 2 guys in each bedroom. And so the day I got to town, Chris picked me up at the bus station. And within about 3 or 4, that was February, and then at some point in June, I switched bands. I left the band I had moved down there to start and joined up with Chris and Rich. So by the summer of '87, I was in Mr. Crow's Garden, and then that turned into the Black Crowes. Right.
I mean, you had quite a journey to go there, and I know you've spoken publicly a few times about how you joined the Black Crowes and them breaking up. And the thing I took away from meeting you, and it sparked in my mind, I think at the time I was doing this podcast, because you had a brilliant idea, and it bothered you, and I don't know if it still bothers you that it didn't come to fruition, but the anniversary that you were trying to work on, that you wanted to have take your radio show on tour with, right?
Yeah, that was always when I started doing local radio in Nashville in 2008, I started doing Sunday nights every now and again. Like, I knew the guy at the local sports talk station, and I told him I had this idea to do a show, which is essentially musicians talking sports, which in Nashville, Tennessee is not an odd idea.
No, and with your cousin, right?
Well, not initially. It was me and a buddy down here.
Okay.
My cousin didn't get involved until we got picked up by Fox Sports Radio in 2014.
Okay.
So initially I was just doing Sunday nights, but once I kind of really paid attention, it dawns on me how this thing works, which is basically you get sponsors, and we would go out and do events. Like, I took my show, even when it was just a local show on Sunday nights, I went up to the Kentucky Derby for a weekend. I had a buddy that worked there, and he got us all the media credentials. And then we got a sponsor to send me and 2 other guys to Louisville for the whole weekend. And we were live on the air from Churchill Downs, and we were just drinking mint juleps and having a great time. And it was on the radio. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, man, I felt like I was Hunter Thompson or something. Like, this is great. I'm drinking at the Kentucky Derby and talking about it on the radio. This is a good way to get to pass the time. And I started thinking about the Black Crowes were going to go out on tour again in 2013. And by that point, I had built my show. In 2012, I started doing a daily show in Nashville. And it was going really well locally. And so when the Crowes decided to go out again in 2013, I just had this vision of a tour bus that's got a radio studio in the front lounge. Like, in my mind, it's like, I don't know how this works technologically speaking, but if I could just get this thing set up and hook up on a satellite link, that would be amazing. Well, for local radio, that wasn't really probably going to happen. But in the back of my mind, I always saw it as the perfect world is you have a tour bus, you can broadcast from the bus, you do a radio show in the afternoon, and you go play a gig at night. That was just and then far more importantly to me, honestly, at the time, was if I get that to happen, if I could get some sponsors to put a bus out there, then I got my own bus. Separation from the rest of the Black Crowes was definitely a goal as far as that goes. And so, it was just something I thought about for 2013. Like, that would be cool. That's a goal down the road. When the tour in 2013 ended, we had every intention of touring again in 2015, and that was going to be a 25th anniversary of our first album, 25th anniversary, basically, Black Crowes tour. And also, we were discussing very sincerely and seriously, and it all signed off on that being this could be the legitimate farewell tour, like, for real, because we all are kind of sick of each other. Everyone has their own other band that they're much happier with, and let's just pay tribute to all that we've accomplished.
Yeah, it would have been a good number to end on. 25 years, quarter of a century.
Yeah, it's a perfect. It's like putting that bow on the box. It's like a perfect cherry on top is to go out. And for us, it would have been an unusual thing to do something where we had a plan and then stayed with the plan, and then at the end of it all shook hands and said, well done, see you later. You know, that would have been a nice adult way to finish things. So what happened right at the end of the 2013 tour is Fox Sports Radio called and said, you know, let's take your show nationwide. And right away I went, oh, man, I can totally get this tour going, for, you know, because I knew, okay, do a national show for a year, and then the Black Crowes launch a farewell tour. That bus is going to happen. Like, I'll get a national sponsor to put that bus on the road with a satellite studio in the front lounge. This will be awesome, because in my mind I could see, you know, everywhere you go, somebody'd want to be, you know, every city we'd go to, there'd be either a musician or an athlete in that town that would come and hang on the bus for the day. And so it was, and that
brilliant.
Really, the people at Fox Sports Radio loved that idea.
Because it's brilliant.
When I was first talking to them, it made sense, you know, and a lot of radio guys, they really don't travel well. You know, like they go to special events, but the idea of a radio show just constantly on the road, no one does that. And for me, it's natural to be traveling all the time. So it was something I was excited about. It did not take long before I was dispossessed of the concept because the band blew up shortly after I started with Fox Sports. Like within a month of me starting on Fox Sports Radio, it was obvious the band was about to explode. And so that's still shelved. I mean, Trigger Hippy gets busy over the next couple of years. Maybe we'll see if we can get to that point. But you know, it's a great idea that still exists, at least in my mind.
Good. I'm glad it does. And there's a lot of things to segue from there. For one, I'm always somebody who gives credit. You know, I want credit given to me when I do something, and I give credit when someone else does something. So your idea, I think, is brilliant, and I really hope radio in general takes that and credits you with it. Because my goal here, honestly, and you kind of inspired that, I want Guns N' Roses to make their own, to take your idea and run with it and make it their own, to do that. To think about, you know, they all want to talk and have have an outlet. You know, yes, Twitter has been great for Axl the past few days, but if they were to have, I mean, you're telling me that Duff wouldn't want to have his own radio show, and he talks before he goes on stage, and that wouldn't be monumentally successful. You know, and if they need a producer or a program director, I'd be happy to do it. But I'm saying that
there's always a silver lining to every great idea.
Yeah, and you have that initial foundation of a great idea, because it should be traveling well. And while radio is, you know, there's a lot of things changing in radio nowadays. Things with local or national, and you have to get creative. And I think that's a very creative thing to do. So in addition to that, you know, what I think is just, honestly, I've been thinking about it, a brilliant idea. Just the concept of just putting together a final farewell tour and it falling apart before it got together. And that was the premise or the idea, or all the things swirling around Guns N' Roses, not in this lifetime. So there's been a lot of comparisons between the Black Crowes and GNR before and since then, but they seem to continue, and that did not fall apart. So I don't know. Have you seen? I don't know if have you spoken publicly about an opinion of the reunion, and see that, like, if Axl can get together with Slash, if they can make it work for at least one last time. I mean, we're all surprised it's still going, but it could have been just one final set of dates. I mean, I don't say that this is not offered with any snark or any. I'm not kicking sand in anyone's face. Mm-hmm. When a band hasn't played together in 25 years or 22 years or whatever it was, and they've all burned every bridge possible, and someone comes up to them and says, "Oh, by the way, guys, stadiums." When the word is stadiums, that changes everything. And that's not. I'm not saying it's a money grab. I'm sure those guys are happier and probably more blown away by how much they enjoy playing together again than they ever could have imagined. But the reality is that band there is no comparison between what Guns N' Roses did to the rock landscape and the Black Crowes. We never had that kind of impact. I mean, long term, and for the people who love the Black Crowes, of course, we're a huge band. But I mean, Guns N' Roses obliterated the landscape in 1988. I mean, that they were the single. That was a comet, you know, for real. And I was, you know, when I was in a local band in 1987 and trying to figure out what we're going to sound like and who we're going to be, and my band we're obsessed with the Replacements
and a bunch of Southern indie bands, and REM as at least as a template of how to do it your own way. You know, we're listening to, you know, the Long Riders. I mean, bands that are, you know, like the REM was starting to take off, but the majority of our main influential points were club bands most people have never heard of. That was our mindset. So a band like Guns N' Roses to a band like Mr. Crow's Garden would have been like, no way. And in fact, the first time I ever saw their album, I thought it was silly and they all had these dumb names. And I was like, whatever, hard rock idiots from the Sunset Strip. That's the antithesis of what we are. And then I heard that record. And even though I didn't admit it at the time, the first time I ever heard Appetite for Destruction, I was like, there's something very different about this. This has nothing to do with all these other bands in LA. And obviously within a year of that, you know, it took a little while for that match to strike, but within a year of its release, and certainly by 1989, I mean, by the time Lies came out, I was working at a record store, at a you know, independent vinyl shop in Atlanta. And I mean, Guns N' Roses were the first, second, third, and fourth biggest thing we had. You know what I mean? Like that's, so to see them get back together after all these years, it's not as big a surprise to me, because if, you know, take away the money, take away whatever, there's just no getting around the enormity of what that band was. And, you know, it continued even through, you know, and like I remember specifically when Metallica put out the Black Album, and then the notion that Metallica was actually sort of going a little beyond, like, I think they're actually the biggest band in the world now. And that was the conversation at the time. For a minute, you know what I mean? Like, for a brief minute, there was Metallica and Guns N' Roses. And then before you even knew it, then there's Nirvana. So in the middle of all that sort of stuff, that's where the Black Crowes had their greatest impact, between Guns N' Roses and Nirvana. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have a moment like that compares to either one of those bands, because Nirvana then was every bit as big as Guns N' Roses had been 4 years earlier. And in the middle of those two things is when we hit. So, you know, we never had we didn't have that rocket ship ride that those bands did.
But you're still, I mean,
that said, for 20 years, we maintained a pretty steady touring, and, you know, we were at a level we were at. But it's a very different thing to suggest that after 5 years, maybe the Black Crowes put something back together. Everybody's doing their own thing, and we had just stayed at this level for so long, and it needed to end. I mean, there's the ethos of the Black Crowes was to just make new music and keep going forward. And when it became obvious that those two brothers refused to write songs together, or I should say that Chris refuses to write songs with Rich, there's no reason for the band to exist anymore. That's just how we always were. For Guns N' Roses, it's a very different thing.
What was it like being in a band with two brothers? Is it like an Oasis situation where, you know?
I can tell you what it is. I can tell you what it is. It's just a complete pain in the ass. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you've got. I mean, I'm writing a book about the band right now. And
Great.
So I'm living it.
I was going to ask you that.
Okay.
You know, and I mean, it's a band that, you know, we put ourselves in a position where we were a great rock and roll band.
Yes, you were.
And had we not been, then there's no way anybody not named Robinson would have lasted for more than 5 minutes, because they made it really, really difficult just to be around. It was, you know, and it's not the fist fights. Those happened every now and again. It's the every 5-minute argument. It's arguing about which way to drive to the studio. It's arguing about, you know, who ordered wheat bread. I said rye. I mean, it's everything. Yeah. And it's impossible for anybody that wasn't around the band to fully understand how ridiculous it is. And it's, you know, and it's like I said, it's really embarrassing if you remove the music we made from the storyline, because then you're like, what in the hell was I doing with these people? You know, they were nuts. And then you get on stage for a couple hours, and all of a sudden it's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's all worth it. You know, that's how the Black Crowes operated.
Amazing. So this lends itself to one of the, because we got a lot of fan questions for you, Steve, from all over the world when I put this out. And I know you'd have a limited amount of time, so I want to make sure I get to them. So then talking about, Rich, of course, one of the questions I got was from Russ from my GNR forum, if you were ever interested in joining Rich's current band, Magpie Salute, or it made it sound like it was never going to happen with Chris, but now am I misinterpreting that you wouldn't work with Rich again?
No, I'm not. I mean, Rich talked to me. He called me and asked if I was interested, and I wasn't. I mean, to me, they're a package deal. You know what I mean? It's like I don't. There's nothing. And to go out, and I don't begrudge Rich on any level for going out and putting a band together with a lot of members of the band and playing Black Crowes. I mean, somebody should be playing those songs. They're great songs. But for me, I didn't. It just was not at all interesting to me. I mean, from day one. I mean, I know it's the way the public views a band and the marketing of a band and the imaging of a band is one thing, and that's that the Black Crowes are the two brothers, and everybody's usually on either one side or the other. It's Chris or are you a Chris guy or are you a Rich guy? And the two of them operated in that way. Like they looked at every member of the band as, is that my guy or his guy? Whereas, but I'm the one guy that's immune to all that because I was there from the beginning. I'm me. I'm not either one of their, if the three of us were going to play music together and call it the Black Crowes, that's a phone call I answer and consider. But to go play with either one of them separately is absolutely no interest for me.
That makes sense. I respect that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a defiant thing. It's as natural as anything else. It's just, and by the way, I have my own other band. Now, we've, by design, just taken a couple years off because we had to reboot the entire thing and kind of start from scratch because I had a lot of things that I needed to be done differently if we were going to move forward. I have a radio career. I've got a family. I mean, I never shied away from having other things in my life. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
And in a perfect world, the Black Crowes would have been all any of us ever wanted or needed. We could have developed enough within that band and an infrastructure and a million things where that would have always been there for us. That was just not how they aren't able to function within that mindset. You know what I mean? Like that was just never an option. Like the band REM, who again I think is the smartest and most well-managed, organized. I love how they did everything. Even when I stopped listening to their records, I have ultimate respect for how they operated. REM still exists. It's still they're never going to play another gig, but they've got an entire world that they've created that they still maintain. Jimmy Page still keeps up with the Led Zeppelin legacy, obviously, very well. Mm-hmm. There's none of that with the Black Crowes. Like the Black Crowes are just dead, buried, salted, raised, destroyed to the nth degree.
Yeah, I don't think you have. I was looking to tag you in the Black Crowes in Twitter. I don't think there's an official Black Crowes Twitter. The one that I found hasn't been active.
No, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's not.
No.
There's not. There's literally nothing.
It's sad. I mean, this also segues, and I got to give another fan on my GNR forum where I put out questions, and he might as well. And Rich, Steve, I called you Rich. Steve, you'll appreciate this. He was my own producer for the day. Ludo Reigen, he gave me like sheets of questions to ask you, and it's a lot of. This could be a loose analogy, I guess, but I could think of like Magpie as the Velvet Revolver of the Black Crowes. How is it really? But that's my shoehorning a segue in there. So
Sure.
Thank you for letting me do that. So Slash said in an old interview before Velvet that he was jamming with you and a bass player around 2002, writing and rehearsing. Is that true?
Yeah. It was, and it's really funny too because the Black Crowes first ended at the end of 2001. I quit the band in December of 2001, and the band had agreed to take a hiatus, which meant Chris wanted to go make a solo record, and basically said to us, if I can build my own career, I'm not coming back. Which to me is the same thing as saying, go fuck yourself. It's like,
yeah.
well, okay, see you later. And then I said, well, then I'm not waiting around for that. Goodbye. So I quit. And and there was no band. I mean, like at the end of 2001, the Black Crowes then ceased to exist again, pretty much. You know, there was nothing. So Rich went and started to put a band together. We were all living in New York at the time. I moved to L.A. and all this backstory as a way of saying I'm going to L.A. and I'm thinking to myself, well, and I had a writing project I wanted to get involved with. I had some other things to do, but I also know a bunch of producers in L.A. and I thought I could pick up some sessions and then meet some writers in L.A. and just various things that and I had my wife was pregnant with our second kid, and I'm thinking I need a few years just to figure out some new avenues, and so I'm going to go do it in L.A. And I moved to L.A. in early 2002. I flew out there in January with my wife to look at houses and met a realtor and start looking for a place to live. We land at LAX, rent a car. I drive straight to the Valley to Encino to meet this realtor that my Black Crowes manager had hooked me up with. I mean, I'm literally 90 minutes in Los Angeles, and I pull up to the first house, and she's waiting at the front door to meet us. And as I walk up, she's like, "Hey, I'm Lisa. Nice to meet you." I said, "Nice to meet you." And in my mind, I'm like, shit, man, I'm actually going to move to L.A. I wonder how in the world am I going to find something here? I'm just thinking, I guess this is really happening. Mm-hmm. And the first words she says to me are, "I was just showing Slash a house, and I told him I was going to meet you, and he gave me his number to give to you. He wants you to call him."
Through real estate.
Okay.
Yeah, the realtor. And I looked out, and she hands me a torn off corner of a piece of paper, and it says, "Hey, Steve, Slash," with his number. and I looked at it, and I looked at my wife, and I went, "Well, I guess we're going to be okay."
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a sign. Yeah.
That's a good sign. And this is the honest to God's truth. And I don't know if I've ever told anybody this story. She says, "Well, the owner of this," she says, "the owner of the home is still here. He's going to let us in, but then he's taken off so we can look through the house." And I said, "Okay, great." And as I'm staring at the piece of paper that says, "Hey, Steve, Slash," the front door opens, and it's Gilby Clarke.
Oh, my God.
What?
You moved into Gilby's house?
No, I didn't buy it, but we ended up looking at we looked at it.
Oh, okay. You were going to move into Gilby's house. Oh, my jeez.
We were just looking. We were just doing. It was the first of 10 houses.
Got it. But as soon as you move or process of moving to LA, you're already smacked in the face with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, it was funny. I was like, and I had shaved my head actually, so I'm bald.
Really?
And so Gilby Clarke has no. I mean, he just thinks I'm just some dude. He didn't even look twice. I'd never met him. But, if I'd still had long hair, he might have done the double take, and then we might have had a conversation. But I knew exactly who he was. I didn't say anything. I just went because I was just I mean, it wasn't lost on me that I'm holding Slash's phone number. That's Gilby Clarke, and I'm still not even 2 hours in town yet. This is really funny.
Now I'm glad you're writing a book, because if that's a story you've never told, I mean, I can only imagine more that you haven't told, non-GNR and realtor related, that you have in store.
It was pretty funny. And so I called Slash the next day, and we had only met a couple of times. And I'd always heard from mutual friends, people would say, "Oh, man, Slash has always been a big fan of your playing." I'd gotten that message from a few people over the years. So
yeah.
And Slash sat in with the Black Crowes once in 1990 on one of our very first tours.
Yes, that was
up to the gig.
A question we got. New York, 1990 to June 2001. It's a Sin, apparently. He played with you guys at the Marquee.
Yeah, we did an old blues cover. Yeah.
All right.
So I called Slash, and he said, it's like, "Man, what's going on?" And I heard the Crowes are done. I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, man, are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for I don't know when I'm going to move here. I'm just in town looking for houses." And he said, "Well, I'm not in any rush, but if you want to get together and jam, whenever you're back in town, let me know." And I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem. I'd love that." And that week, while I was looking at houses, I mean, this is January, so in my mind, I'm thinking we'll get to L.A. by the summer. Well, we found a house that week that we loved. It was perfect. I didn't expect it to be so quick. And by the end of February, we moved to L.A. A month later, we're moving. And so we got moved in. We got unpacked. I'd been there a couple of weeks, and I called him and said, "Hey, I'm in town." And right away, within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden we got together at a rehearsal place in North Hollywood and started playing. And it was about, it was once or twice a week for several months. It would just be me and Slash, the two of us, for a couple of hours. And he just had a million ideas and riffs, and he just wanted to jam on them with an actual drummer. And that's what we did. And it was great. I mean, I can still remember the first time I sat down at the kit and he plugged in and started playing, and I was like, I'm laughing to myself because I'm thinking, well, that's fucking Slash. Like, no one else plays like that. I mean, he's this fucking hurricane of a guitarist, and just his tone and his personal feel and groove and where he sits in front of or behind a beat. All great players are unique in that way. And again, I would have never called myself a Guns N' Roses fan. Like, I didn't put their albums on and listen over and over and over. You didn't have to, at least in the late 80s, early 90s. It was everywhere.
Right.
But that music is so stamped in your head, and his playing, I mean, it was instant where I was like, holy shit, man, I'm playing with Slash. Like, it was just, to me, it was just funny. Like, of all the, it's no different than when the Black Crowes had toured with Jimmy Page, or various people sit in with you and you hear them within. I mean, on the last Black Crowes tour, Peter Frampton popped up on stage one night.
Jeez.
And it was the same thing. Like, if you had blindfolded me and said, who's playing guitar? After about 5 seconds, I would have gone, is that Peter Frampton? and you don't realize
right.
how much you feel the uniqueness of all these guys until you're in that situation. And then you're like, oh, my God, that's exactly who that is.
So when you're jamming and I mean, when you're not overcome with like, oh, my God, I'm jamming with Slash, even for someone who was already established like you.
Well, it's the most natural thing in the world. I mean, it's really more.
Well, you're human.
I'd be driving home, and then I'd laugh. I'd laugh. I'd be like, man, that was fucking awesome. But when we would first start playing, it's as normal as if you plugged in a guitar and said, hey, dude, let me play you a riff, and I'd go, okay, what is it? And then I'd start playing along to it. When you're doing it, it's just like this conversation. It's just what you're doing.
Right. When he initially said no rush, I mean, and obviously indirectly it became not a rush, but it just happened quicker than you thought with you moving and having to jam with him. Was anything recorded? Like what did he have you jam on? Because it seemed like he said he wasn't in a rush, and then of course Velvet happened later. So what was the plan?
Well, I didn't know and I didn't ask because I was just 3 or 4 months removed from my own band where I'd been, for 14 years. I'd just been in one thing, and I was just getting out of that myself. And it was, I was just dealing with real life. I mean, I just moved to LA, and I had a toddler, and then I had a baby on the way, and I don't have a job. I mean, I'm just kind of like, I wonder what's going to happen now. I mean, I was very much just getting used to a new landscape for our life, and still trying to make sense of what the Black Crowes had been and how it ended. And I mean, I'm just in a different headspace.
But there wasn't a point like when you're figuring out your next phase of your life and say, hey, maybe my next phase is going to be in a band with Slash. It never occurred, or was it just like hanging out?
Well, no, I thought about it, but I didn't. It wasn't pressing because I was genuinely. I mean, in my mind, I was literally like, well, I mean, we're having a baby this summer. I ain't doing shit till that happens. I mean,
fair, sure.
It was just it just wasn't worth pursuing in my head, and it was obvious that we were getting it. We got along. We would talk a little bit and shoot the shit. We'd jam and then tell stories. We sit there and just crack each other up with the absurd stories or whatever. Man, did you ever play that place? Oh, one night. It's all that kind of stuff.
Right on.
And then we had played together probably a dozen times, and he said, hey, man, what do you think about bringing a bass player in? And I said, sure, yeah, that'd be great. And he said, okay. And he had heard about a dude. I can't even remember the guy's name. But it was not someone you'd know. I mean, it was like a total – like a guy came in with a 6-string Yamaha bass. He was like a jazz cat. But a really, really solid player. And we jammed with him a few times, and he was just a nice dude. And then one day I walked in, and we were always in this little room. It was a place called Mates in North Hollywood. And one day I got there, and I saw Slash's guitar tech, and he goes, hey, you're in the big room today. I said, okay. And I walk into, like, the big soundstage room, and I'm like, well, this this is silly. With like, for 3 guys to jam, we don't need the stage. We just need a rehearsal space. And I walk in and fucking Duff is up there. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm playing with Slash and Duff. And Duff goes, hey, dude. I'm like, hey, man. I mean, I'd met him once, like 10 years earlier. And he goes, hope you don't mind, man, if I crash the party. And I was like, no, that's fucking awesome. And so Slash and Duff and I start jamming. And at one point I stopped and I said, okay, look, I don't know if this is ever going to happen again. And you guys, I don't give a shit if you don't want to do it. But, motherfucker, we're playing Welcome to the Jungle. Hit that intro. Let's do this shit. Nice. And they both laughed. I'm dead serious. I'm not leaving a room with the 2 of you if we don't fucking play that song.
Nice.
I mean, let's do it. And I said, I'm bigger than both of you. Choke the shit. I'm making this. And they both laughed. And Flash thought it was so funny that I demanded it, that he fucking played it. And he just started doing it. And I was
amazing.
Like, this is the coolest thing ever.
That's so cool.
And
that's amazing.
And that was great. And we did that with Duff a couple times. And then after that, there was only one time Slash said, hey, you want to go get lunch? And I said, afterwards. I said, yeah. And we went and sat at this cheesesteak place. And I just remember he said, so what do you think of the band, man? And I said, in my head, I'm literally like, the band? Like Sean Helm and Robbie Robertson? Like, fucking love them. And he goes, no, man, our band. And I go, I didn't know we had one. He goes, well, I mean, maybe. Do you want to be in one? Are you thinking about this? And I said, yeah, shit, man. If you want to take this somewhere, I'm totally down. This is great. What are you thinking? And he goes, well, the Snake Pit's been fun, but I need to do something real again, like for real. And this is cool. And he goes, I've just never played with a drummer like you that like gets behind the beat and with a lot of swing. Like I've always played with really straight, hard rock drummers. So this is really cool for me. Like, I can really hear a lot of cool stuff. And I said, well, dude, I think it's great. I love all these songs and parts and pieces. I said, all these, he just has a million ideas, riffs sitting around. And they're great. And I was like, man, this is fucking awesome. And I said, would you want to do something with Duff again? And he goes, well, I was thinking about it. And I was like, well, dude, I'm totally, for whatever, I don't know what it is, but yeah, let's figure it out. And so we had one conversation like that. And the next night, he and Duff went to, there was a memorial. I can't remember. Someone died. Some big, like, metal guitarist or shit. You'd have to look it up. In the summer of 2002, there was a thing like at the Roxy where a bunch of people went out and all had a big jam to pay tribute to somebody who had just died. And Matt Sorum was there, and he and Duff and Matt all jammed together. And then that's when they had this thing of, like, they all still had this residue from Guns N' Roses, and they were like, let's go back and do something right this time. And that connection with Matt, like I didn't, that's that. I mean, I got that story later. I heard from Slash, and he said, man, I'm going to do something with Matt and Duff. He didn't give me the whole story then. He just said, it's just personal, and I kind of got to pursue that. And I was like, awesome. I mean, great. Like, it's not like we had gone we literally had one conversation about maybe we'll do something. And then he walked into a situation which I understood completely. Like, you guys got together and you all felt this need to try to go do something right together again. And I was like, yeah, dude, take off. And so, and again, like I said, like I got a baby at home. It wasn't some big thing at all. It was the most natural thing in the world. And when Slash put his book out years later, I had someone call me. I was like, did you read Slash's book? And I said, no. And he goes, he says that you were, and it was funny. He goes, he said that was the beginning of Velvet Revolver. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know I was in that band.
I mean,
crazy.
How does that make you feel then? I mean, they obviously were, lightning in a bottle. But do you wish you were involved in that? And in addition to just the beginning of it, the zygote phase of it.
It doesn't. I've never even thought about that. I mean, because to me, if you say, do you wish you were involved in it? I think about it very realistically. Did I want to go be in a band with Wieland? And did I want to go do this? And do I?
Yeah, true.
I mean, there's a whole lot to that question because it's an actual concept. It's not a flight of fantasy. So
no,
I've
you're
never
right.
thought about it. for what Velvet Revolver was, I don't think I wouldn't have been the right drummer for that band.
Fair enough. I know
That's not my vibe.
Right. Fair enough. Right on. It's just very cool that you were somehow involved in the birth of that idea.
I can say this: the stuff I was playing with Slash sounded very different than from what Velvet Revolver became.
Are there any recordings of what you guys did at all? Was it just jamming?
You know what? I have no. I mean, it was. If there are recordings, it's just work tapes. We never said. And that's not true. I think we did. I think he did record it. He'd say, "Okay, let's." But it was just like, okay, count it in and let's do this thing and then there and then there. It was just parts back and forth.
Did you?
And he wanted to have those recorded. I'm sure. In fact, I'm pretty sure he did. I've never even thought twice about it. I don't know if those still exist or if he has them or what.
But none of them like, hey, I jammed on that went on to be a Velvet song or perhaps like a Miles Kennedy song. Nothing like that.
No, not that I'm aware of. That stuff was all very. It was different. It was more. It was bluesier. It was more a lot of mid-tempo and halftime. Like, I remember one time he just said, "Man, you play." He goes, "I write these parts, and in my head I'm hearing just really straight, hard drums." And he goes, "You cut everything in half, or you just swing it more. It's really cool." And he kept talking about. And he was very like, in that sense, he was thinking of it like Zeppelin, like But he just said it was just cool. It was just, I honestly don't remember. If you put something on, if there was a tape and you pressed play, I'd go, oh, that's me and Slash. But short of that, I don't remember any of it. You know what I mean? Like if I heard it, I would know exactly what it was, but I can't conjure it up in my mind.
Right on. Because that's just one of the many fan questions because we all want to hear, because I think it was just released the other day, and Kevin, you can correct me. There was like a 1985 never heard released demo of Appetite for Destruction that I've never heard that's making the rounds on the internet. So, I mean, even if there's, if it's just demo tapes in today's world of YouTube, I mean, and what you may think is nothing, fans are going to want. So that's why I asked that.
Slash's guitar tech would be the guy who would know. And I'm spacing right now on his name. I'm pretty sure he still works with him. He's been with him for over 30 years.
All right. Well, hopefully that'll be a future episode of the AFD show. But in addition to, again, fan questions, and that's part of the reason why I brought Kevin on, he wanted to ask you about Izzy Stradlin in the Black Crowes tie. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, it's been rumored for many years. Was there any truth to the fact that before you guys got Mark Ford in, that Izzy Stradlin was asked to join the Black Crowes?
No. There's no truth to that whatsoever.
Finally,
I've never even heard that as a rumor. No, we never considered. Mark was the only guy we knew. Mark and had known him, and he had jammed with us in 1991 a few times. And when Jeff left the band, there was never a conversation about anybody. It was just an assumed. It was just a given that it was going to be Mark Ford. I mean, we knew Izzy and some of the other guys that hung out with him. But I don't even remember the time. I guess he was already out of the band by then. Yeah, but no, we never thought about that. That was, and I know, and I can assure you that was, and that's not just. It wasn't that I was unaware of it. That conversation never happened. That was always going to be Mark Ford.
Right on, because I'm reading an art. It's still on the internet. Because I'm just trying to give validity to that rumor and why it was asked. This is from the L.A. Times. November 16th, 1991, Mark Ford, one of the most exciting young guitarists on the Orange County rock scene, is leaving his own struggling band, Burning Tree, to join the Black Crowes, a group from Georgia, blah, blah, blah. So this is the Izzy tie. Ford, who lives in Fullerton, said Friday he also received an offer this week to join Guns N' Roses as an onstage substitute for Izzy, a guitarist who is reportedly reluctant to continue touring. So Ford said he refused that offer because playing with the Black Crowes would, quote, be a lot more fun. It's my kind of music. I didn't think twice. I'm far more into the Black Crowes music than the Guns N' Roses thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's where the mix-up happened.
Mark was asked to replace Izzy, but we never thought of Izzy joining the Black Crowes.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
Well, we cleared that up.
Yeah,
it's funny too because just on a total side note, Chris Shiflett, who's the guitarist in Foo Fighters,
Yep.
he went to L.A. to audition for Guns N' Roses, and got the Foo Fighters gig. So in some weird thing, he went down there to play with Guns N' Roses, and ended up walking into the room where the Foo Fighters were, and it was like they played with him and they hired him. It was something crazy like that.
That's a story I did not know, and want to follow. I want to follow that rabbit hole.
Shiflett told me that the Black Crowes' first tour in 1990 was with a band called Junkyard, and the second date of that tour was in Ventura, California, and his band opened the night. Like they put a third band on the bill, and it was his band, which I had no recollection of, but that
cool.
might have been that band.
All right, so we know for a fact, / you've at least jammed with, which is so cool. And if anything, I know you were the first. Well, not like unofficial, whatever. You started that process of Velvet Revolver, whether you knew it or not, which is just amazing.
Yeah, right. No concepts. Believe me when I say there's a thing on the radio show. I told a brief version of that story once. I just mentioned I had played with Slash. Oh, that's what it was. We were doing Steve Gorman Sports, and I had a guest call in, just like a football analyst, and I guess he had read Slash's book. And he goes, "Hey, wait a minute, man! I never knew you were in Velvet Revolver." And I said, "I didn't either." And then he told me, and I said, "God, I was the first drummer in Velvet Revolver, and I never even knew it." And that soundbite they still use in promos for the show, where I say, "I was the first drummer in Velvet Revolver, and I never even knew it."
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I hear that in commercials for my show to this day.
Oh, that's amazing because we know Izzy is stricken from the record. We know about you never jammed with him. Are there anyone else that possibly in GNR you may have jammed with along the way? Oh, and of course the indirect Gilby Clark connection now, so we know that. Any connections to anybody else?
No, I did. I did a thing. I'm trying to think, what was the keyboard player's name? Was there a guy named Dizzy?
Yeah, Dizzy Reed. He's still in the band.
Yeah, Dizzy Reed. Okay, yeah. I met him once. I'm trying to think of what it was for. Around that same time, maybe a little later, there was something in L.A. where I jammed him and Johnny Colt, who was the original Black Crowes bassist, and Dizzy, and maybe Gilby. This is really weird. I've never remembered this, and now that you just said that, it sparked a very vague. It was just a happenstance thing. I think there was I was just in L.A. I feel like I was in L.A. with the Black Crowes, but on a day off, I just ended up somewhere and we all had a jam or something. But honestly, the fact that I can't remember it was pedestrian at best, whatever it was.
Right on. No, all good. And I guess this may lead you, because I don't want to keep you for too much longer, and things that you need to remember, and like the Slash story you didn't elaborate on until now. You mentioned before that you are working on a book, or you're going to. Where are we with that?
I'm knee deep in it right now. It'll be out by the summer or spring or summer of next year.
I can't wait. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be about. I mean, of course, Black Crowes and things, but
it starts with me moving to Atlanta and ends with the band ending in 2014. It's just Black Crowes.
Okay.
I'm sparing my family and everybody on the periphery. This is just a book entirely about the experience of being in the Black Crowes.
Okay. Wow. What made you want to do that now? Because we mentioned before in our segment that Matt Sorum is working on a book that's quote unquote going to be the juiciest GNR book. So that's from one drummer to another. Eddie Harsh, our keyboard player, died a little over a year ago. And when he died, I did a segment I opened up Steve Gorman Sports with a memorial, if you will. I just talked about Eddie for about 12 minutes. And I sat down that morning to write it all out. I just wanted to get my thoughts. I didn't want to try to do it extemporaneously necessarily, because you could just get really caught up. So I just put down a bunch of bullet points, and I just wrote out the structure of what I wanted to say about Ed. And as I was doing that, I just started writing and writing and writing and writing. And I just kind of went into a corner for an hour and just wrote this lengthy
not for even the piece, but it was as if I was writing a book about Ed Harsh. And I've always been a writer. I've always written a lot of things. And then I went and did it that day on the air. And then over that weekend, I literally just had this feeling of like, oh, I think I need to write a book about the band now. Like, it was pretty simple, really.
Is it cathartic for you, like writing it? Is it, you're getting out a lot, or you just want to tell your story?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
No, it's both. And it's
both, right?
And like as we referenced earlier, there's no Black Crowes anymore. There's no
yeah.
There's no one's looking after the legacy. No one's looking after the music. No one's looking after any of it. It's just dissolved. And that's going to be I don't want the Black Crowes to reunite, but I will always be. I hate the fact that it ended the way it ended, and I hate the fact that it doesn't exist on any level. Like, you know, if people love the music, that's cool, but there's nobody maintaining the legacy, and I think that's just terrible, and it's sad that it's so impossible. Even in death, if you will, the two brothers fight over every little thing, and it's embarrassing and it's stupid. And so, for a once great band to be so treated so. There's just so little respect from its own members for what we accomplished. And so, you know, it's like there needs to be an account of the band from somebody who was there and somebody who's lucid. And unfortunately, that means I have to do it.
Right on. And it's unbelievable because I've never spoken to Chris. I did speak to Rich when he came on. It was over the phone just like here. He didn't come down to the studio to do a radio tour about his new band. And you know, of course, getting asked about the Black Crowes, and he's talking about his brother. He's like, he just wants to be, you know, in the Grateful Dead, and he's like, I will never make music with him again. And you know, it does hurt, it does suck, and that's like a lot of what we're going through. You know, whether it's some more than in different periods of Guns N' Roses, when Axl was the only one leading, you know, carrying the name, Rose and Roses, as Dee Snider coined it once. But there was still a legacy to be carried on, and the Black Crowes have an amazing legacy that should be told. Yeah,
it's just silly. I mean, it's sad, and it's just you know, it's comical because it's so absurd. But underneath all the laughter is just a whole lot of pain and frustration for everybody not named Robinson.
Well, like, what do you look at? Because now I see Guns N' Roses as potentially, maybe it's my bias, inspiring other reunions. Because I feel like I've seen, you know, L.A. Guns, and now the big one with the Smashing Pumpkins, but it's like kind of a reunion, not. And I say, so like for me, even though you don't want it, and yeah, the Eagles, or quote unquote the Eagles, are out there. I only feel good because it's Glenn Frey's son doing it, and I think Don Henley said once he doesn't want to do it anymore, then they're officially done. But so I think fans, there always will be a hope and want that. I know you did mention before that you would listen to that call. And I think it's awesome that, you know, that Rich. Go ahead.
Here's what that means. The problem with the Black Crowes is a little different from all these other bands. Chris wants total control. That's true. He wants all the money. That's also true. Like, that's what ultimately ended it. Was he demanded the lion's share of the profits after 30 years or 25 years of being partners, and not just to me, but to his own brother. So I mean. To cross that bridge back in another direction is, you know, to blow something up at the edge of a 25th anniversary tour, which would have been the biggest tour we'd ever done, to put it to that point and then destroy it over greed is really, that's a new realm. I mean, no one's done that. Like, people have taken control of bands before.
Right, Axl infamously.
It usually happens a lot earlier. I don't think anyone's ever waited 24 years to make a power play. You know what I mean? It's
no, that's fair.
No, dude, we're trying to end this thing respectfully. And the idea to go out and to legitimately say to everyone who supported the band, thank you. And he doesn't think that way. He doesn't care. He just saw it as, I need all of it. You know, and in his mind, the Black Crowes were him. In Rich's mind, the Black Crowes were him. You know, they both struggle with wanting credit for things that a group of people created. Were they the famous ones? Absolutely. Did they write the songs? Absolutely. The hard work that put that band in a place where millions of people could hear the music was undertaken and executed and planned by everybody. And when you've got people that want to take credit and take and reap all the reward for a group's effort, it's really hard to imagine putting something like that back together again. And especially when it was never pleasant to begin with. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know about any other band's experience, and I know all bands have a lot of drama, but when everybody else has spent 20 plus years putting huge efforts into simply keeping the thing moving forward, like that's a huge part of being in the Black Crowes, is just refereeing and saying, come on, guys, stop, let's go, keep going, come on, what about this? Let's focus on the good. Let's focus on our strengths. Why do we let our weaknesses bring us down? 20 plus years of that. It's like, and then to have it end the way it ended, it's just too much to say. It's like, why? You guys, if the Black Crowes did get back together, and I don't say that there won't be an idea floated out there, it's going to come down to the fact that one or two people in the band are out of money. That's all that's going to do it. And people hate hearing that shit. And I don't say that with glee. It's sad. But the reality is Chris is going out this year and doing Black Crowes covers with his own. He's doing a 5-week tour with a bunch of people to just play Black Crowes music. That tells me one thing. He needs money. And he doesn't want to share it with his brother or me or anybody because he needs all of it. So he'd rather have 100% of a small amount of money than 33% of a shitload of money. That's reality, and it's sad.
That is sad, and I'm sorry you've had to go through that, and I'm not sorry because you've obviously had a lot of success through that, and I can't wait to read about all of this.
Yeah, well, I am in no way, shape, or form a victim of all this. I bought the ticket and I took the ride. That's what happened, and I own that 100%. And along the way, we were a fucking great band, and we made a ton of great music. And
yes,
so it's all worth it. And my frustrations with the Black Crowes are in the context of while we're talking just about the Black Crowes and what could have happened or should have happened, it's very frustrating. In the grand scheme of things, it was fucking great.
You're right. And again, it's obviously a different band, different personnel, but it's hard for me not to make the GNR correlations there. And I'm sure that those listening, I mean, there are plenty there. And I think the best correlation, though, is that there is the fan base that wants it, regardless of what, so it took GNR forever. We never thought it would happen. I mean, there was a point, Axl's calling Slash a cancer and saying that he's in his ass. And it's just like, you see them smiling next to each other now. Of course, all those zeros attached to it helps, but they seem to be enjoying each other's company, and it seems to continue. So I will keep the faith in your end for you. Because
you really need not do that, my friend. There's tons of there's a lot of albums. There's literally thousands. There's almost there are somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 live shows that you can go find and listen to. There's plenty there's plenty of Black Crowes out there.
Sure, I just never saw you guys in concert. So put it that way. I would love to see you in concert, but I can also see you in concert.
It's called YouTube.com.
In person. I'm gonna see you in person, not just in the radio studio. This segues into what's going on with Trigger Hippy. I almost did it again. Trigger Hippy. When can I see you guys?
Trigger Hippy is we've got a bunch of music recorded. We are finishing that process. Literally Monday is the final day of mixing, and then by the summer we'll be playing out again, and then plan to play a lot of shows the second half of this year and through 2019 and beyond.
All right, cool. So then if you are out in New York and Long Island, I will see a Trigger Hippy show. And
we will be in both of those places. I would say that's a pretty safe bet.
Then
we played West Hampton Performing Arts Center, the little theater there, years ago. One of our first gigs ever was West Hampton or East Hampton or Southampton. I don't know. There's a little theater out there.
I was trying to think because I obviously know Southampton.
It was great, but we've always wanted to get back there just because we had such a blast. But we'll be in the city for sure. We'll be in New York City this year several times.
Cool. I prefer Long Island because I prefer parking. I fucking hate New York City.
Parking's good. Parking's good. All right, dude. Hey, I'm sorry. I got to jump.
Well, thank you for your time, Steve, and I hope we can talk again soon, especially when your book comes out.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
It's funny, Kevin. The whole time I'm thinking, as we're talking to Steve, and thank you, obviously, again, to Steve, and hope to talk to him further down the road in person or on the AFD show, that he sounds so much like my friend Joe Rock, who is on a previous episode as well. I'm not going to call that a fan episode because he's in radio and he gave us kind of like the Axl Springsteen analogy throughout. But he's just got a born voice, and me, I've been watching a lot of Nanny reruns lately, and I just feel like, oh, let's talk about Guns N' Roses. Like, that's just me. And then Gorman comes on. I mean, for someone who's been in a legendary band, and he's just a naturally gifted. And yes, he went to school for it, which I even admire even more. That he's not just naturally gifted, but he's schooled. He's learned.
Yeah.
That he just sounds like, James Earl Jones, and so it's great. And he's honestly, I know he's an inspiration to a lot of musicians, and for me, a little in radio since I've met him. And as I told him, that idea with the GNR with the Black Crowes van, whether we'll get one for Trigger Hippy, that he'll do that then. But it would just seem like, with all what Guns N' Roses does, and they're trying to be like innovative and create new things, and how a lot of new life has been breathed into this band, I'd be lying. It's just been my own imagination. Like, I used to imagine, like, since I suck, Kevin, at being a musician, I'm sure before you were on stage and doing things, you imagine yourself on stage. So I imagine myself doing certain things in radio. That's one of the things. I would love to have a Guns N' Roses official radio, and me just happening to be the program director. That
would work.
Think about it. Just think about it. The entire playlist picked by members of the band. It's not going to be all GNR all the time. They're going to pick up blues stuff, punk stuff, all that. You're telling me Slash wouldn't want to have like an interview show, like he interviewed like horror people, like you wouldn't want to do that. Like you wouldn't want to interview like paleontologists, talk about dinosaurs, or Duff wanted to talk about business, like have like their own little talk shows on there. These are things, like, honestly, I've been thinking about, and this kind of just gives me a reason to talk about it, because that's Steve Gorman, somebody who is in both worlds, and his idea sparked, like, where is this podcast going to go? Well, that's of course, a dream scenario, like a little bit of a unicorn dream scenario. But the thing that he didn't mention, and I will mention this because I do have a lot of fans that reach out, and you are. Kevin, you are a fan, but you've become a friend. Yep. That I got this one email saying, how can I contribute? How can I help? And that, to me, that sounded like money. I don't want your money. I'm not going to tell you to go somewhere to pay, to help me out. I'm very lucky that I work in radio. Knock on wood, working in radio is like being in a musician. You never know when it's going to end. That I just happen to be able to do this podcast at my job. I don't get paid for it. I'm lucky I made contacts to get it on the iHeart app, so to help with that outlet. But this is all me. I'm not getting paid for this. I just do it out of love. This is a passion project for me. It would be great, and Steve inspires me in this way as well. I mean, this is typical, a possible sponsor. And despite, I've done a lot in my 15 plus years in radio. I have considered sales as more of just like extra income, because radio is just like you're not Howard Stern. People don't make it's not a lot of money nowadays. Like, it's part of like it's a lifestyle. Like being a musician, it's kind of being a lifestyle. Like, there's not a lot of Guns N' Roses out there, but there are a lot of musicians out there. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it. But how you could help, and I will read with what if I just got a message from a fan on Facebook. And I guess then this is how you can help going forward, and more wonderful interviews that I'm so lucky to be able to do, get you involved as well, like people like with Sir Kevin coming on, and I want your questions to be asked. So this is from Poncho from Texas. I just found your podcast today and listened to the Alan Niven interview. I was pleasantly surprised to hear an intelligent and insightful conversation regarding guns, hell 80s, a Sunset Strip era rock and roll in general, really. I didn't think that was possible outside someone like Eddie Trunk. I stand corrected. I'll start following your cast. Thanks. No, thank you. That is beyond flattering. I mean, when I get messages from Alan Niven, if someone like it all means a lot. Because to me, again, this is just a passion project. I'm not being paid for this. I'm being paid for iHeart for doing other things. But that's how you can help. Subscribe. So, because if you subscribe, that means I have more followers. And more followers means, hey, someone, if you want to be a part of the show, mention your product, like I did, and I'll say it again, Collar Pop, COLLAR_pop. They made a couple of Guns N' Roses related pins. They're on our Facebook and Twitter. One of the Axl High Top and one of the Missing Izzy Milk Carton. And he messaged me the day after saying that he got a few orders after I released the podcast. So that's how that works. I mean, yeah, he paid me in 2 free Guns N' Roses pins, but I was happy to get those pins. It's not always going to be money. So that's how you can help. And who knows where this can go. I mean, people are coming out of the woodwork with this. Did not expect to interview Alan Niven. Did not expect to interview Rob Gardner. And that's going to be the next episode of the AFD show. So unless you have anything else to add, my dear Kevin.
Yeah, basically, let it keep going.
Thank you.
I'm just back in.
That's fine. I know. You did what's great. And I'll reveal this one thing as we end the final this episode of the AFD show. Talking with Mitch during Alan, I didn't expect it to go that long. And I didn't want to interrupt, so I turned off the lights in my studio, and I peed in my iHeart water bottle, and I threw it out. Like I couldn't, and so that's what you was kind of. I mean, well, you went to your bathroom in your house, so you weren't gross, but you just hopped off the phone for a second as I'm ending this.
Hopped off the phone.
Yeah, so I was tying everything in together and ending everything awkwardly like I usually do. Urine talk. I'm a fucking mess. So I appreciate everyone out there, Kevin, Poncho included. Of course, thank you again to Steve Gorman. Looking forward to interviewing Rob Gardner next episode. Thanks to John Miller and Raz Q for setting that up. So that's going to be episode 50 of the AFD show. So that's when it's going to happen. But I'm still going to end the show the same way because you never know. Just like with Guns N' Roses, you never know until it happens, right? So as far as the next episode of the AFD show is concerned, when will you see it? Well, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
You've been listening to the distorted minds of Appetite for Distortion. Follow the guys on Twitter at the AFD Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/the AFD Show.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.